The emerald green dress hung on the back of my bedroom door like proof that I still believed I belonged to a family that had already erased me. I had ironed it the night before until the fabric lay smooth and perfect, imagining myself standing beside my younger brother on his wedding day. On my dining table sat a heavy copper espresso machine wrapped in thick paper and tied with a plaid ribbon, the exact model my brother had circled in an email. Like a kid making a Christmas list, I had requested 2 vacation days from the logistics company where I worked as a senior project analyst. The hotel room near the mountain resort was booked. I had even scheduled a blowout at a salon across town for that morning. My baby brother's winter wedding. A Christmas wedding. He kept calling it, even though it was a week before the actual holiday. I was ready to be the steady big sister, handing my parents tissues, smiling through photos, doing what I always did in our family drama. Fix things, smooth things, keep the peace. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from my cousin. "Hey Liv, are you okay? Did the blizzard delay your flight? Did you really miss the ceremony?" I frowned the mug halfway to my lips. My stomach dipped like the ground had shifted. Ceremony. My thumbs felt thick as I typed, "What are you talking about? The wedding is next weekend." The dots that showed she was typing came and went like she kept erasing whatever she wrote. "Olivia, today is the third Saturday of December. The wedding was this afternoon. It is over." For a heartbeat, I thought she was pulling some dark joke. Then I glanced at the date in the corner of my phone screen. The numbers stared back at me, ruthless and clear. I did not cry. Not at first. Something inside me went strangely still. The way snow makes a neighborhood quiet. I set my mug down, walked to the fridge, and stared at the invitation held up by a magnet, shaped like a snowflake. The script was beautiful, swirling dark ink on heavy cardstock. The date was crystal clear. The fourth Saturday of December. Today was the third. My hands shook as I opened social media. I had stayed off it all week, trying to avoid spoilers of my brother's wedding party. Now the app exploded with images. My mother, Linda, in a silver dress fixing my brother's boutonniere. My father, Robert, in a tailored suit, holding a crystal glass of champagne, his face flushed with pride. My brother Daniel, at the altar at a lodge in the Colorado mountains, snow piled up like frosting behind the big glass windows, his new wife glowing in white. My parents stood with the bridal party arms linked, smiles wide. The caption under one photo hit me like a slap. "The whole family finally together for Christmas." There was no empty chair anywhere, no gap where I should have been standing, no sense of anyone waiting for me to arrive. I tapped through photo after photo. I was not tagged in a single one. There was no hint of a last-minute emergency, no accidental mention of a different date. They did not forget me. They removed me. I looked back at the emerald dress hanging on my door. The copper espresso machine on my table, suddenly ridiculous and heavy like a headstone for a relationship that had already died. Something inside my chest did not shatter so much as harden and go very quiet. People always told me I was too dramatic, too intense, too sensitive about my family. Maybe you are thinking that right now. Maybe you are searching for a reasonable explanation, some innocent mix-up with the date, some misunderstanding about the wedding, the guest list, the Christmas schedule. I used to do that too. I used to bend over backward to find excuses for them. By the time I finished with them, and by the time they realized what I had done with the lakeside cabin, they liked to call our family place. The word misunderstanding never crossed their lips again. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the dark of my small Denver apartment, the only light coming from the Christmas tree in the corner, and the city glow sneaking in around the blinds. The wrapped espresso machine on my table looked like a casket. By morning, the sky over the city was pale gray, the sidewalks crusted with old snow. The traffic noise started up like any other workday. People scraped ice off windshields. Joggers in bright jackets moved past my window. The world moved on, I did not. I showered and pulled on jeans and a navy sweater, the soft one I usually saved for casual Fridays. No makeup, no careful curls. I did not feel like building a face to present to people who had just chosen a wedding without their only daughter. I grabbed my keys and wallet. I did not call or text. I knew exactly where my parents would be. Sunday mornings in my parents' neighborhood in the suburbs of Denver had a script that never changed. Waffles, bacon, coffee. Football. Pre-game, murmuring on the television. My brother half watching, half scrolling through his phone. The drive from my apartment to their big stucco house took about 40 minutes. Usually, I passed the time with a podcast or a playlist. That morning, I drove in silence, my hands clamped on the steering wheel, rehearsing speeches in my head. Words about betrayal, exclusion, injustice, revenge. Words about family drama, about being deliberately excluded from a wedding on purpose. By the time I turned onto their street, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my tongue. The house looked exactly as it had when I was a kid. Perfectly cleared driveway, a plastic light-up snowman in the yard, twinkle lights along the roofline. My father's truck and my mother's crossover SUV sat side by side. Daniel's new electric car, the one he bought right after I helped him cover a so-called short-term cash flow issue at his restaurant, gleamed at the curb. I parked behind him. There was still a spare key tucked under the flower pot on the porch, because I had been the one who insisted they needed a backup years ago. I let myself in without ringing the bell. The smell of bacon and maple syrup hit me like a memory. It used to feel like safety. Now it felt like someone else's childhood. Voices floated from the open concept kitchen, past the strawberries. Can you believe we got that many photos before the batteries died? I still cannot get over that view like a Christmas card. I stepped into the doorway. Morning, I said. One word, but it landed in the room like a plate shattering. My father froze coffee halfway to his mouth. My mother turned from the stove, waffle iron lid in hand. Daniel looked up from his phone, his expression sliding from lazy contentment to startled caution. For a second, nobody spoke. Then my mother broke the silence with a bright, brittle smile. Olivia, we did not know you were stopping by. Not we are so sorry. Not we owe you an explanation. Just surprise. Like I had shown up early to Thanksgiving dinner without calling. The wedding was yesterday, I said. My voice sounded calm in my own ears, almost flat. Daniel put his phone down, screen up like he was just pausing a game. Yeah, he said it was. My invitation says next Saturday, I said. The fourth Saturday, I have it on my fridge. My father sighed with the weary patience he usually saved for telemarketers. Live, do not start a scene. It is Sunday morning. I am not starting a scene. I said, though my cheeks burned. I am asking why my invitation had a different date than everyone else's. My mother flipped a waffle and closed the iron like she was doing a commercial for domestic bliss. It was a placeholder, she said. We were not sure about the venue yet when we sent yours. You know how mountain lodges are in December, bookings, weather, all that. That is a lie, I said. The word rang against stainless steel and granite. Aunt Carla knew the date months ago. So did Uncle Dave. So did all your church friends. Everyone else's invitation said yesterday, only mine was different. Daniel swiveled on his bar stool to face me fully. He looked tired, but there was a looseness in his shoulders that made me want to shake him. The ease of someone who had gotten exactly what he wanted. Look, Liv, he said. We just wanted to keep it small, less stress, no drama. We wanted a certain vibe. A vibe? I am your sister, I said. Exactly, my mother chimed in. And you know how you get? How I get, I repeated. Intense, she said the word dripping with fake concern. You are so serious. You overthink everything. You make people feel like they are on trial. That kind of energy is a lot for a wedding, for Christmas, for happy occasions. You mean I am responsible, I said. I ask questions. I notice things. You kill the mood, Daniel added, chewing a piece of bacon. We just wanted one day where nobody was lecturing Dad about his drinking or rolling their eyes about how much the flowers cost or bringing up old family drama. My father did not look away from his plate. We thought it would be calmer without your intensity, he said. Calmer without me. So you decided, I said slowly, to lie about the date on purpose so I would not come. Hannah, do not be so dramatic, Mom said, slipping into my name from childhood like it was another weapon, then catching herself and correcting Olivia. We were going to take you to brunch. Show you the photos. Have a separate little celebration, maybe on Christmas Eve. It would have been fine. She turned back to the waffle iron. There are plenty of waffles, do you want some? I stood there feeling like a stranger. They went back to clinking forks and talking about how the lodge had handled the snow. What a great promotion the photographer was running. How the pastor had mentioned family in the sermon. I waited the way I have always waited for them to come to their senses. I waited for my father to slam his mug down and say this was wrong, for my mother to crack and admit they had hurt me, for my brother to say he was sorry. Instead, Daniel dabbed his mouth and smiled at me with faux excitement. Since you are here, he said this is actually perfect timing. My stomach clenched. Perfect timing for what? He leaned forward, his whole posture shifting into that charming pitch mode he always used when he wanted something. So he said, since we kept the wedding small, me and Allie want to have a bigger family weekend next month. More relaxed board games. Kids running around someday. No tuxes, no seating charts. Just a fun family drama. Free weekend. My mother nodded enthusiastically. We were thinking the cabin, she said, our place at Echo Lake. The cabin. The small cedar house on the edge of a lake in the Colorado mountains, with a dock that reached out into the black water and a stone fireplace that smoked. If you did not open the flue, the cabin. My parents and brother loved to call our family place, as if it had magically fallen from the sky into all our names. The cabin I bought, the cabin in my name alone. We already told some people, Daniel said, all excited, my restaurant staff, some friends from Allie's office. So if you can get up there ahead of time, make sure the pipes are okay, maybe hire a cleaning service, that would be awesome. Ally really wants the place perfect for photos. It is my cabin, I said, I keep it ready. My father snorted. Oh, Liv, do not start that again. Of course it is family property. You just have the better credit score, so your name is on the paperwork. That is what family does. We share. I share, I said, you take. The air in the kitchen snapped tight. Excuse me, my mother said, her voice frosting over. That has been the pattern my entire life. I said I paid for Daniel's car down payment. I paid off your maxed out credit card. When you were about to lose your second vehicle, I helped Dad with his back taxes when the IRS letters started piling up. I co-signed the line of credit when Daniel opened his restaurant. And now, after you deliberately excluded me from his wedding, you want the only thing in my life that is just mine, and you expect me to host you like nothing happened. You are keeping score, my father said, his neck reddening. That is ugly, Olivia. That is exactly what I mean. You are transactional. You treat family like a company ledger. He jabbed his finger toward me. That attitude is why your presence would have ruined your brother's big day. You always have to bring injustice and betrayal into everything. His words landed, but not the way they used to. They did not burrow into my bones. They stacked in front of me, evidence in a case I had ignored for too long. If they already saw me as transactional, maybe it was time to stop acting like their endless line of credit. You are right, I said. I saw them all relax like muscles unclenching. They thought I was about to apologize. I always did. I'm sorry, I added. Mom exhaled. Daniel smirked, magnanimous. It is fine, he said. Just send us the new door code by Friday, okay? And book the cleaning service before we get there. Allie really wants the windows sparkling in the photos. She is all about the Instagram aesthetic. I nodded slowly. I will take care of it, I said. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. My mother called after me to drive safe, her voice light, as if we had smoothed over some little misunderstanding about the Christmas schedule. I drove away from their house without looking back at the big wreath on their front door. I did not go home. I headed west toward the mountains, toward the cabin they loved to post on social media as our happy family retreat, toward the place I had always secretly called my escape hatch. The highway climbed from city to foothills, from foothills to pines, from pines to bare rock and snow. The further I got from Denver, the more awake I felt. Normally, the drive to Echo Lake calmed me. The sight of the frozen water between the trees, the white dust on the mountains had always been my religion. My place where everything felt bigger than my family drama. That day, every mile sharpened something in me. By the time I turned onto the narrow road that wrapped around the lake, the hollow numbness from that morning had hardened into something else. Not rage, something colder, something like resolve, revenge, but not the loud kind you see in our pro-revenge threads or movies. The quiet kind that looks like a woman finally choosing herself. The cabin sat at the end of a gravel drive half wrapped in tall pines, the lake gleaming dark behind it. Smoke from someone else's fireplace drifted faintly from across the water, but our deck was empty. Their deck was empty. My deck, my cabin. I killed the engine and sat for a second, listening to the silent trees. When I pushed the code into the keypad and stepped inside, the familiar smell of cedar and wood smoke wrapped around me. The interior glowed in the winter light. Whitewashed walls, a big wool rug, shelves lined with books and mismatched pottery. Every piece of furniture chosen by me. Every bill paid by me. I did not stop to enjoy it. I walked straight down the short hallway to the small bedroom I had converted into an office. A metal filing cabinet stood in the corner. The one my parents teased me about. Only you would bring a filing cabinet to a cabin, my mother had said once, laughing. You are such an accountant, even though my actual title was something slightly fancier. I opened the top drawer. Files color-coded, my handwriting neat on every tab. Mom and dad debts. Daniel loans. Cabin deed and mortgage. Taxes. Credit card statements. I sat on the floor, the wood cold under my jeans, and started pulling everything out. I began with the cabin. The deed grantee. Olivia Carter, sole owner. The mortgage statements with my name at the top, month after month. Receipts for the new roof after the old one leaked, for the plumber who replaced the pipes, for the contractor who rebuilt the sagging deck. Every invoice with my card number at the bottom. My parents loved posting photos from the cabin, calling it our family lake house. They loved hosting Thanksgiving dinner there, turning the long weekend into a performance of togetherness, as if we were living in a commercial. None of them had put a single dollar into it. Next, Daniel's file. A handwritten note from him promising to pay me back after I spotted him the down payment for his car so he would look successful in front of investors. Text messages about his restaurant, the line of credit. I co-signed his constant emergencies. It is just this one vendor, Liv. Just until the holiday rush. I swear I will pay you back by my birthday. He never did. Mom and Dad's file. The night they called about the late property taxes on their house, sounding terrified about losing it. The transfers. I made the interest, I absorbed. Later, when I finally checked county records out of curiosity, I learned the liens had been resolved months before my father called me. The credit card I let my mother use after she said her card had been compromised. She used mine to buy plane tickets, restaurant meals, Christmas gifts. She never once asked about paying me back. When I finally brought it up, she cried and told me I was making her feel like a bad mother. Every page I touched felt like evidence. They said I was transactional, that I made everything about money, that I was obsessed with injustice and kept score. They had no idea how much of a ledger my life with them really was. I stacked the cabin documents, the loan records, the transfers into a cardboard box I found in the bedroom closet. By the time I finished, the box was full and heavy. I carried it out to my car, arms burning. I loaded it in the trunk with a thud that echoed in my chest. Then I went back to the front door, pulled out my phone, and opened the smart lock app. For years, I had handed out that door code like candy. You want to take your church friends up for a weekend? Sure. Your book club wants a retreat in the fall? Absolutely. Daniel wants to throw a birthday party at the cabin, of course. I deleted the old code. I entered a new one, a combination they would never guess. One I silently promised myself I would never share with them again. The lock beeped, then clicked. Outside, the frozen lake caught the last of the afternoon light, the surface pale and still. The deck looked like the photos my mother liked to post, but this time the image meant something different. This was the moment I chose myself over them. On the way back down the mountain, the cardboard box thumped gently with every curve in the road. It felt like I was carrying a bomb and a shield at the same time. Back at my apartment, I lugged it up the stairs and set it on the dining table, breathing hard. My hands were cold. My heart was not. My phone lit up with a new message from Daniel. Hey, can you send the new code for the cabin? Allie wants to go up early to plan decorations. No apology about the wedding. No explanation about the wrong date. No acknowledgement of betrayal. Just another request. Another withdrawal from the emotional and financial ATM they believed I was. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I powered my phone off and tossed it onto the couch. If I was going to reclaim my life, I could not keep answering every call. There was only one person I trusted enough to see the entire mess. I turned my phone back on just long enough to call her, Sarah. We had met in college. She had been the loud girl in the back of the lecture hall, quick with a joke, quicker with a no. Where I apologized for existing, she took up space. She said things like, I do not owe anyone an explanation, with the same ease other people ordered coffee. She answered on the first ring. Hey, stranger. she said. I was just about to text you. I saw pictures of the wedding on social media. Why did you not tell me they moved it up? Did you actually choose work over family like your mom is telling people? Her tone was teasing, but there was something careful underneath. My throat felt tight. I did not go, I said. Silence. Not even a breath, just a held moment. What do you mean you did not go? She asked. They gave me the wrong date. I said on purpose. My invitation says next Saturday. Everyone else's said yesterday. I found out from my cousin after it was already over. More silence. I am coming over, Sarah said suddenly. You have an early shift tomorrow, I said. It is late. Unlock your door, she said. I am already in the car. About 20 minutes later, she barged into my apartment. Brown curls, stuffed into a beanie, wearing an oversized hoodie and leggings, holding a bottle of red wine in one hand and a bag of spicy chips in the other. She took one look at my face and did not ask if I was okay. Tell me everything, she said. We sat on the floor beside the dining table. The box of documents sat between us, like a third person. I told her about the dress, the espresso machine, the invitation with the wrong date. I told her about my mother's waffle flipping and my father calling me transactional about Daniel saying I killed the mood and the whole vibe thing. I told her about them asking to use the cabin, about calling it family property. Sarah's nostrils flared. She crunched chip after chip like she would rather have been breaking bones. And then I said, after all of that, he still texted me asking for the new door code so Allie could get better photos. Sarah stopped chip halfway to her mouth. She put it back in the bag with exaggerated care. After they deliberately excluded you from his wedding, she said slowly, your brother still thinks he is entitled to your cabin, that you owe him a lakeside backdrop for his Instagram. Yes, I said. She glanced at the cardboard box. And this, she said, what is this? Everything I said, every transfer, every loan, the cabin deed, all of it. Sarah opened the box and started skimming through the folders. Her eyebrows climbed higher with each page. Liv, she breathed. This is like a real-life pro-revenge story just waiting to happen. This is not about karma, I said, though my voice shook. This is my life. Exactly, she said. And you have been letting them run it like it is their company, and you are the unpaid intern. How much money is in here? I stared at the papers. I had always refused to total it. It felt disloyal. I do not know I lied. Sarah looked up sharply. You are a numbers person, she said. You always know. I swallowed. The down payment on the cabin, I said. The restaurant line of credit. The taxes. The car. The credit card. The countless little bailouts. Maybe somewhere around $170,000. Sarah let out a low whistle, then caught herself. That is not family help, she said quietly. That is your entire future. That is your inheritance to yourself. That is your retirement, your safety net, a home in another town, a dozen trips, years of breathing room, and they still had the nerve to exclude you and talk about your attitude. I pressed my palm flat on the table so my hand would stop shaking. If I say no now, I said, they will make me the villain. They will call everyone and spin some story about how I am selfish, how I ruined Christmas, how I am jealous of my brother's wedding. Let them, she said. They have been running a toxic family narrative for years anyway. But you do not go into this with just feelings. You go in with facts, with law, with boundaries. She pulled out her phone and scrolled, then turned the screen toward me. See this, she said, Megan Price, attorney. She handled my cousin's mess when her siblings tried to hide their grandmother's will and cut her out of an inheritance. She is a beast in the nicest possible way. A lawyer, I said, against my own parents, against my brother. Not against, Sarah corrected for you. This is not revenge yet. This is self-defense. My parents hate lawyers, I said weakly. They always say you should keep the courts and judges out of family business. Of course they do, she said. Judges and lawyers care about evidence. Abusers hate that. They prefer secrets and guilt. The minute you treat this like a real injustice instead of sad family drama, the tables turn. She reached across the table and took my hand. You are not crazy, Liv, she said. They are using you. They have been using you since you got your first paycheck. It is time you stop letting them. I thought about my grandmother, about the way my parents talked about her small house back in Kansas, how she passed with nothing, how families should not fight over inheritance because there was nothing to inherit anyway. I thought about how often my mother used the word loyalty when she wanted something. My voice came out small but steady. Okay, I said, I will call this attorney. Good, Sarah said. Tonight we drink this wine and eat these chips and ignore every call from your family. Tomorrow, you make an appointment. My phone buzzed on the couch. Probably my mother or my father or Daniel or some relative wanting the truth. I reached over, picked it up, and slid it under a cushion. For the first time in a long time, I let myself sleep without planning how to rescue anyone. Megan's office was perched high in one of those downtown towers with glass walls that reflected the Colorado sky. The reception area smelled like coffee and printer ink, and something expensive I could not name. I almost turned around twice before the receptionist called my name. "Megan will see you now," she said, standing. "Right this way." Megan was in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and a calm energy that made me feel like nothing I could say would shock her. She wore a simple dark dress and no-nonsense boots, as if she dared anyone to underestimate her. "Olivia," she said, standing to shake my hand. "Sarah told me a little bit about what is going on. Come in." She led me into a conference room with a big table and a view of the city and the distant mountains. A man in a sweater with elbow patches sat at one end, a laptop open in front of him, a small calculator to one side. "This is Ethan Morales," she said, forensic accountant. Given what Sarah mentioned about loans and shared finances, I thought it would be wise to have him here. I set the cardboard box on the table. It looked small and cheap against the polished wood. "I brought everything. I said I work in logistics and analysis, so I keep records. I just never looked at them as a whole." "That is how these things usually work," Megan said, pulling a legal pad toward her. "People who grew up in toxic families learn to normalize injustice. You excuse it as drama or favoritism. You do not audit your own parents." For the next couple of hours, I told the story of my adulthood as if it were a company report. Ethan sorted the documents into piles: personal loans, property, business obligations, credit cards. He moved quickly occasionally, typing something into his laptop, cross-checking property records, tax filings, bank statements. Every so often his mouth would tighten when he saw a date that matched a story I told. It was humiliating and freeing at the same time. Each piece of paper proved I had not exaggerated. Every line item made my father's accusation that I was transactional feel twisted and upside down. Finally, Megan drew the cabin file toward her. "Let us start with the anchor asset," she said, "the lakeside cabin." She flipped through the deed, the mortgage, the insurance. "Here's the good news," she said. "Legally, the cabin is yours, 100%. Title is in your name only. No trust, no shared ownership, no recorded promise to anyone else. You pay the payments and the taxes." "My mother says it is a family property," I said, "that it is our family cabin." Megan's mouth pulled into something almost like a smile. "She can call it whatever she wants," Megan said. "That does not make it legally true. The law cares what is on record, and what is on record says, you own it. If they go there without your permission, they are trespassing. If they refuse to leave, they are attempting to squat. If they damage anything, that is vandalism." I swallowed hard. Relief and anger tasted the same, bitter and hot. "They know that," I whispered. "They must. That is why my name is on everything. They can use the cabin without taking any real risk. They have me for that." Ethan slid a sheet of paper toward me. A number was circled near the bottom in red pen. "This is the total of documented funds you have provided to your parents and brother over the past decade," he said. "It does not include opportunity cost of interest or investment growth." The number was slightly higher than the one I had admitted to Sarah. Seeing it written down made my stomach flip. "It is a lot," I said. "It is more than many people earn in several years," Ethan said gently. "You have essentially functioned as the family bank and rescue fund. Without interest, without security, and without respect." Megan folded her hands. So she said, "Here is where we are. The cabin is clearly yours. Most of the loans are informal, though. Some texts and notes would support legal claims if we chose to pursue them. Your parents and brother have a long pattern of financial manipulation and emotional blackmail. The question is not what you can do." She met my eyes. "It is what you want to do." I thought about our pro-revenge stories I had scrolled through late at night when I could not sleep, about people carefully reclaiming their lives from abusers, about tables turned. At last, I thought about my grandmother and the will. My parents insisted never existed, I thought about my brother's wedding, about that caption. The whole family finally together. I do not want to sue them for money, I said slowly. Not right now. I have accepted that most of that cash is gone. What I want is for it to stop. I want them out of my bank account, out of my credit, out of my cabin. I want them to know that I know exactly what they have been doing, and I want a clean line between their chaos and my life. Megan nodded once sharply. Then here is what we do, she said. She outlined it calmly like a shipping plan. First, a formal letter revoking any and all implied permission for them to use the cabin effective immediately. Clear language about trespassing and law enforcement. Second, notices to every bank and credit company involved, removing your name from any possible joint accounts or guarantees when possible, and shutting down automatic transfers to them. Third, a detailed record of the outstanding debts and loans for your tax documentation, formally stating that no further financial assistance will be provided. She looked back at me. It will be received as a declaration of war, she said. They will accuse you of betrayal, of tearing the family apart. They will likely try manipulation guilt, maybe even public confrontations. They already used my love for them to siphon 6 figures from my life. I said I can handle being called dramatic. Megan's eyes softened for a second. There is one more thing, she said. You mentioned a grandmother and a will. Do you have any documentation about her estate? I shook my head. No, I said. My parents always said she died with nothing, that there was no inheritance. Uncle Dave was the executor, I think, but he never talked about it. Megan made a note. If you are comfortable, reach out to him, she said. Ask if he has any records. Sometimes in these toxic systems, the older generation tries to leave something for the scapegoated kid, and it gets diverted. If there is fraud there, that could change our leverage. My skin prickled. Fraud inheritance, words that belonged in courtrooms and R-Pro revenge posts, not in my family drama. Megan glanced at the creamy folder where Ethan had written cabin in neat letters. When exactly was your brother planning that big family weekend at the lake, she asked. The second weekend of January, I said. Perfect, she said. We will have the letter to them well before then. It will be interesting to see how they explain canceling their free lakeside venue to their friends. For the first time in my life, I felt something solid under my feet when it came to my parents. It was not their approval. It was not their version of family. It was the ground of my own choices. The letters went out on a Tuesday morning, couriered to my parents' house and to Daniel's downtown condo. Copies went by certified mail, stamped and time-marked, filed neatly in Megan's system and in mine. I went back to my job and my spreadsheets. Trucks and shipments do not lie. A truck either arrives or it does not. A route either works or it does not. Delays can be explained by storms, not by mood swings. Working with logistics had always been my refuge from our messy family system. Megan had given me very clear instructions. Turn your ringer off, she said. Do not answer calls from them. Save every voicemail and text. Do not engage no matter how guilty they make you feel. If there is any real threat, forward it to me. So I put my phone in my desk drawer face down and on silent and dove into work. At mid-morning, the drawer started to hum. Short bursts, long bursts again and again. I stared at the screen, not opening it, and forced myself to keep typing. My shoulders bunched up. My breath stayed shallow. You are allowed to have boundaries, I whispered in my own head like a little prayer. You are allowed to tell them no. Eventually the buzzing stopped. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. Maybe I dared to hope Megan's formal voice and legal language had cut through. Maybe they were ashamed. Maybe they had finally seen the injustice. Around lunchtime, my desk phone rang, the internal line. Olivia, hi, came the receptionist's tight voice. It is Bri at the front desk. I am so sorry to bug you, but your family is here. My pulse spiked. My family, I repeated. Your parents, she whispered. And your brother. They are at security, insisting they need to see you right now. Your father is very loud. Of course he was. I will come down, I said. I hung up, smoothed my hair with trembling fingers, and walked to the elevator. My reflection in the shiny doors looked pale, but more composed than I felt. The lobby of our building was all glass and marble, every sound bouncing. I heard my father before I saw him. I am her father, he was telling the security guard. You cannot keep me from my own daughter. She owes us an explanation. I stepped out of the elevator. Dad, I said. The word stopped him. The whole group turned. My mother's mascara was smeared, her eyes red and puffy. My father's face was mottled in angry patches. Daniel stood slightly behind them, jaw-clenched hands flexing. Olivia. My mother cried, rushing toward me, then stopping short when she saw I was not opening my arms. What is this about lawyers and threats and trespassing? This is insane. The head of security, a calm man named Ken, cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, he said, these folks say they are your parents. We have a policy about personal matters in the lobby, so… I got it, I said, thanks, Ken. I faced my family at a distance that felt safe. Other co-workers were drifting through the lobby with coffee cups, slowing down, pretending not to watch. A delivery driver lingered by the revolving door, eyes wide. The cabin is mine, I said calmly. Legally, completely. I have decided you no longer have access to it. That is what the letter said. Daniel snatched a crumpled paper from his pocket, waving it like a flag. You canceled the cleaning service, he said. You changed the code. We have people planning to be there. You cannot do this. It is cruel. What is cruel? I said, is lying to your sister about your wedding date, so she misses it. Then showing up at her job to demand the keys to her property. We made a mistake, my mother said, tears sliding down her cheeks. It was a mix-up with the printing. We told you that. Why are you punishing us like this? It is Christmas, for heaven's sake. You did not make a mistake, I said. In your kitchen, you told me you wanted a calmer day without my intensity. You admitted you chose not to have me there. That was not a typo. We can work this out at home, my father muttered, glancing around at the watching faces. You are making a spectacle, Olivia. You are the ones who came to my workplace, I said. I am doing my job. You are destroying this family over a cabin, he hissed. Over some money, after everything we have done for you. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. A few people flinched. Everything you have done for me, I repeated. You mean feeding me and housing me until I was old enough to feed myself. That is called parenting, Dad. Not a loan. You did not invest in me, so you could collect interest for the rest of your life. Daniel stepped forward, thrusting the letter at me. Just sign this, he said. It is nothing, just permission for vendors to access the cabin next month. Then we can forget this whole lawyer thing and talk like normal people. He sounded like he thought he was offering mercy. I am not signing anything, I said. If you have questions, you can direct them to Megan. Her information is at the bottom of the letter. You hired some outsider to come between us, my mother sobbed. Your own parents, your own brother. Is this some Reddit thing? Is this one of those revenge fantasies you are always reading? You came between us, I said evenly, when you decided I was good enough to bankroll your lives, but not good enough to be in your photos. When you forged narratives that painted me as selfish, while you quietly drained my accounts. My father took a step toward me, hand half raised the way he used to when I was a teenager, and he wanted to grab my shoulder and steer me. Ken moved smoothly between us. Sir, he said, you need to take a step back. This is my daughter, my father barked. This is an employee in this building, Ken said evenly. Right now you are a visitor causing a disturbance. If you do not leave, we will have to call the police. My father looked at me, eyes daring me. You would not call the police on your own father, he said. I would, I said, and I will. The words felt like stepping over a line. My mother made a small, wounded noise. Daniel cursed under his breath. I turned to Ken. Please escort them out, I said. Ken nodded. He gestured toward the doors. Sir, ma'am, he said, this way. My father sputtered, my mother cried. Daniel glared at me like I had plunged a knife into his dream of a free family vacation. People pretended to check their phones, but I could feel their eyes. I stepped into the elevator. As the doors slid shut, I watched my family being gently steered out of my workplace. The doors closed on my mother's sobs, on my father's red face, on Daniel's outrage. The quiet on the ride up felt like standing in clean air after years of breathing smoke. By the time I got home that evening, the adrenaline had burned off, leaving me shaky and hollow. I changed into sweatpants, ordered Thai food, and sat at my table staring at the cardboard box of documents until my takeout went cold. The scene in the lobby kept replaying in my head. My father's accusation, my mother's tears, Daniel's look of betrayal. Maybe I went too far, the old voice whispered. Maybe I should have tried harder to understand. Maybe I should have protected them from public embarrassment. I pushed the thought away like a plate. There was a knock at my door. My first thought, was that they had come here. Megan had told me to call the police if they did no hesitation. My chest tightened as I walked to the peephole. It was not my parents. It was my Uncle Dave. He stood in the hallway in his worn brown coat, a weathered briefcase in his hand. His shoulders stooped in a way that made him look older than I remembered. He was my mother's older brother, the quiet one at holidays, the man who always sat at the farthest end of the table next to the kids sipping bourbon and listening. I opened the door but did not step aside. "If you are here to tell me to forgive them because it is Christmas," I said, "I do not have it in me." His eyes, kind and tired, met mine. "I am not here for them," he said. "I am here for you." Something in his voice made me move aside. He stepped in, glancing around my apartment like he was taking in the life I had built: the thrift store furniture, the neat stacks of mail, the small plant in the window, the Christmas lights I had strung alone. He set the briefcase on the coffee table but did not open it yet. "I heard about what happened," he said. "Your mother called sobbing about the cabin and the lawyer and how you betrayed them. Your father called me too. He said, 'You are trying to ruin the family.' Daniel sent a group text claiming you are trying to bankrupt him and destroy his restaurant." I listened. He took a breath. "And then I called them cowards and hung up." My eyes stung. Uncle Dave had always been gentle, almost passive. Hearing that word in his mouth shook something loose. "I have watched this pattern your whole life," he said, his voice rough. "The way your parents play favorites, the way they frame Daniel as the golden boy and you as the difficult daughter, the way you swallow your hurt, keep the family piecework twice as hard." I told myself it was not my place to interfere, that every family has some favoritism, that you were strong, that you could handle it. He looked at me, guilt etched deep. "But what they did with that wedding," he said slowly, "excluding you, and then lying to everyone about why you were not there, that goes past favoritism, that is cruelty, and my silence is part of it." He clicked the latches on the briefcase and opened it. Inside were tidy stacks of papers held together with rubber bands. "I was the executor of your grandmother's estate," he said. "I handled the paperwork when she passed. I am a pack rat. I kept everything. I did not think much about it for years, because your parents told me you knew all about it." After the wedding mess, I went back and read. He pulled a stapled packet from the briefcase and handed it to me. "Read the top page," he said. It was an email printed, dated more than a decade earlier. "From my father to my mother." The subject line said "Mom Inheritance" and "Daniel's Restaurant." I read the words once, then again, unwilling to believe. He wrote that the bank had declined Daniel's business loan, that he was worried Daniel would give up on his dream restaurant. He wrote that your grandmother had left a small amount to each grandchild, including me. He suggested that they could take my share to help Daniel by endorsing the check and depositing it themselves. Then tell me later that Grandma had left me nothing, that her will had focused on the youngest grandchild. Then there were instructions. "We can sell it to live as a family." First, he had written, "Tell her the real inheritance is being part of building Daniel's career. She is so desperate for our approval, she will agree with anything that sounds like loyalty. No need to tell her about the check. She will just make it all about her if she thinks Grandma singled her out." My hands shook. The words blurred. I turned to the next page. A photocopy of a check from my grandmother's small estate account made out to me. The endorsement on the back was not my handwriting. "This is your name," Uncle Dave said quietly, "and that is not your signature." My voice came out thin and strange. So I said, "Grandma did leave me something." "She did," he said. "She left each grandchild a small check. She left you a little more because you were the first to finish college. Your parents cashed it, they did not tell you. They told me you wanted Daniel to have it." He handed me another printed email. This one was from my mother to Daniel, written around the time his restaurant was opening. "Do not worry about the cabin," she had written. "Olivia will keep paying for it. Use it when you need a break. She will say yes if you talk about wanting more time with her. She lives for that. She is so desperate to feel included. She does not mind being used." The room tilted. I sat down hard on the couch, the pages slipping from my fingers. "They knew," I whispered. "They knew exactly what they were doing. It was not some messy emotional thing. It was planned. Manipulation, betrayal, financial abuse." "Yes," Uncle Dave said. "And they assumed you would never see it because loyalty, because family, because the story they built about you. I picked up my phone with numb fingers. I scrolled to Megan's number and hit call. She answered on the second ring. Olivia, she said. Everything okay? No, I said, but it could be. My uncle is here. He has emails. He has proof that my parents stole my inheritance, check that my father forged my name. He has proof they deliberately planned to manipulate me into funding Daniel's business. Can you come? Megan's voice sharpened. Do not let him leave, she said. I am on my way. I am bringing Ethan. When I hung up, Uncle Dave looked startled. Are you sure you want to go that far? He asked. Judges, lawyers, police, it can get ugly. I am sure, I said. They have been treating me like their personal bank and emotional sponge for years. They made sure I missed my own brother's wedding and then tried to invade my cabin. I am done playing my role in their family drama. Uncle Dave leaned back, exhaling slowly. Good, he said. It is about time someone in this family chooses justice over secrets. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel like the one causing trouble. I felt like the one finally naming it. My living room turned into a war room. Megan arrived with a laptop bag and a look of focused calm. Ethan followed with a messenger bag of his own, greeting Uncle Dave with a nod that was both professional and oddly warm. Within minutes, my coffee table was covered in printed emails, copies of checks, old letters, and the files from my cardboard box. My couch became a makeshift bench in a courtroom that did not yet exist. Ethan studied the photocopy of the inheritance check with a magnifying glass, tracking the signature, comparing it to my ID. This endorsement is not yours, he said. That is clear, and the timing matches when your grandmother's estate was closed. Your father deposited it into a joint account, not into an account in your name. Megan read the email about selling me on the idea that the real inheritance was backing my brother's restaurant, her jaw tightening. This is not just messy family dynamics, she said. This is intentional misrepresentation. They lied to you about the existence of a will and a bequest that was rightfully yours. That is fraud, and the forged endorsement is a crime all by itself. She flipped to the email about my desperation for approval in the cabin. And this, she said softly, is psychological abuse. They know exactly how to push you. They call your care and loyalty desperation. They use your longing to be included as a tool. I felt exposed and validated at the same time. What happens now, I asked. We have leverage now, Megan said. Before this, we were on defense, shutting them out of the cabin, shutting down financial access. Now we have evidence that could interest a district attorney. We can press criminal charges for forgery and theft. We can pursue civil claims for the stolen inheritance and for some of the larger loans. We can subpoena records, depose people, bring this pattern out into the open. My chest tightened. The idea of my parents and brother in a courtroom of a judge reading those emails aloud made me feel dizzy. I do not want to be dealing with them for years in court. I said I want them out of my life clean. No more family drama, no more manipulation, no more guilt trips about Christmas and birthdays and being ungrateful. Then we give them a choice, Megan said. She looked like someone who had done this many times. We draft an agreement, she said, flipping to a fresh page on her legal pad. If they sign, you waive your right to pursue criminal charges for the forged check and some of the financial fraud. In exchange, they agree to sever all financial ties, permanently. Acknowledge the cabin as solely yours and commit to no further contact. If they refuse, we go to the police and to civil court. We present everything, including their own words, to a judge. Uncle Dave shifted, his hands clasped. Your parents value appearances above almost anything, he said quietly. They will do almost anything to avoid their church friends or neighbors learning that they stole from their daughter and forged her name. If you keep this in the legal system, but out of open court, you are offering them mercy. Mercy. The word tasted odd in my mouth. And if they sign, I said, that is it. That is it, Megan said. You will still have feelings to work through. There will still be grief. It is not magic, but legally, they will have no access to you. They will not be able to sneak back in through your credit report or your property records. They will have to rebuild their lives without your money. She raised an eyebrow. I will draft it now, she said. You should read every word and you can add whatever you need to feel safe. I watched her type, the click of keys mixing with the hum of the heater and the occasional rustle of paper as Ethan organized evidence. Uncle Dave sat quietly, eyes distant, like he was replaying his own memories of my parents and seeing them in a new light. When she slid the draft agreement across to me, my heart hammered. In plain language, it laid everything out: acknowledgement that they had no legal claim to the cabin, a promise to never enter the property without my written permission, a commitment to stop contacting me directly, whether by phone text, social media, or surprise visits, a statement that they would no longer ask for or accept financial assistance from me. In return, I would not press charges for the forged inheritance check or pursue civil claims for certain loans. There was also a clause about disparagement. They were not permitted to spread false stories about me to relatives, church members, or mutual acquaintances. If they did, they would be in breach. This is the nuclear option, Megan said quietly. Once we send this, there is no going back to pretending this is just a little family misunderstanding. You will not be able to attend Thanksgiving dinner like nothing happened. You will not be able to drop by on Christmas Eve. You will be choosing a different kind of life. I thought about the version of my life where I had shown up to that mountain lodge a week early, embarrassed in the wrong dress, smiling through the humiliation and accepting some half-hearted apology. I thought about the version where I had swallowed the hurt and given Daniel the cabin anyway, decorating it myself for his big family weekend, cooking and cleaning, while everyone praised him. I thought about the version where I kept paying bills and fixing crises, waiting for my parents to finally turn toward me with gratitude. That life was already lost. Send it, I said. Megan nodded. She saved the document and started preparing the cover letter. She was very clear and very calm in her wording. Evidence of forgery, evidence of inheritance, theft, evidence of intentional financial abuse, the offer of a private agreement instead of a public courtroom and a judge. She did not mention revenge. She did not have to. The facts spoke loudly enough. When they left that night, the coffee table looked empty in a way that felt strange, like the absence of something heavy. Uncle Dave paused in the doorway. "Whatever they say about you," he said, "I know the truth. Your grandmother would have been proud of you for standing up, and I am sorry I did not do more sooner." "You are doing it now," I said. After they left, I walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my parents were rewriting the story. They were probably telling relatives that I had been corrupted, that a lawyer had put ideas in my head that I was betraying blood for money. They were probably creating a version of events where they were victims, and I was some greedy daughter. For once, I did not feel the urge to correct them. I knew my version, and for the first time I believed it counted. The silence that followed was not clean. It had edges. For a few days after Megan sent the new packet, the only proof that anything was happening came from the small digital signals of my phone. A cousin unfollowed me on one platform and then sent a private message on another asking what was going on, saying my mother had told her I had cut them off for no reason. Aunt Carla left a voicemail saying she hoped I would come to Christmas dinner anyway, that we could all just forget this silliness. I did not respond. Then the ripples started to shift. My Aunt Brenda, my father's sister, called and left a different kind of message. "Olivia," she said, her voice shaking. "Your Uncle Dave showed me some things I had no idea about the inheritance. Your mother told us you refused the money because you wanted Daniel to have it. She told us you skipped the wedding to teach them a lesson that you chose, work over family. I am so sorry." My cousin sent me screenshots of a rant Daniel had posted online about betrayal and family and how people could be so ungrateful after everything he had done for them. The comments were a mess. Half the people took his side. The other half asked uncomfortable questions. "Do you mean the sister who co-signed your loans? Did you really give her the wrong date for your wedding?" Uncle Dave, of all people, quietly replied under that post, writing that there was more to the story and that forgery and stolen inheritance checks were not things you should gloss over as family drama. The comment section turned. My parents must have seen that they were losing control of the narrative. Losing control for people like them feels like an existential crisis. I could feel it in the sudden flurry of messages Megan forwarded. They had hired an attorney. He was pushing back on the agreement. Language calling it harsh, calling me ungrateful, suggesting we were blowing things out of proportion. He hinted that if this went public, it would tear the family apart, that there would be no going back. No Christmas reconciliation. No brother-sister wedding photos when I got married someday. Megan responded with one short line. My client has already experienced the destruction of family trust at your client's hands. We are simply documenting reality. Meanwhile, the practical consequences were rolling in. When Megan notified the bank that I would no longer be a guarantor on Daniel's restaurant line of credit, the bank reviewed the file. Without my credit history, Daniel's profile looked much more risky. He had fallen behind on payments more than once. There were notes about inconsistent revenue. The bank decided not to renew the line of credit. They gave him a grace period that was shorter than he wanted. Then they called the loan. A week later, the restaurant's social media page posted a notice. Temporary closure due to unforeseen financial challenges. Sarah texted me a screenshot with a single line. Tables turned. Guilt flooded in thick and familiar. If you called the bank, you could fix this. The old voice whispered. You could go back on the loan. You could salvage his dream, save your family's reputation, be the hero. This is your chance to prove you are not selfish. I sat on my couch reading that closure notice over and over, memories of Daniel excitedly telling me about his planned menu and his promotion strategy, mixing with memories of him calmly telling me I killed the mood. I thought about the injustice of an older sister funding a younger brother's dream, and then being systematically excluded from the milestones that dream was supposed to celebrate. I thought about my grandmother's check never given to me, spent without my consent. I thought about all the times I had fixed things before, and how each rescue had just reset the cycle. I did not call the bank. I did not drive across town to hug Daniel and tell him everything would be okay. I went to work. I made my own dinner. I went to bed. I dreamed about waves slapping against a dock and doors clicking shut. About 2 weeks after Megan sent the second packet, she called. They want a meeting, she said. My stomach flipped. What kind of meeting? A settlement meeting, she said. Their attorney reached out. They are not thrilled about the language, but they clearly do not want their pastor, their neighbors, or a judge reading those emails. They are willing to discuss terms as long as it can be kept out of a courtroom. Do I have to be there? I asked legally. You do not have to be, she said. I can go on your behalf. But sometimes for closure, my clients need to be in the room. It is different to know someone signed a paper than to sit across from them while they acknowledge your reality, even if they never apologize. I pictured my mother crying in the lobby, my father shouting, Daniel looking at me like I had committed a crime. I pictured my grandmother quiet in my memories, her hands always full of something useful, biscuits or thread. I want to be there, I said, but I want it on my turf, not their house, not a church office, not some neutral coffee shop where they can perform. Megan's voice warmed with approval. My conference room it is, she said. The night before the meeting, I drove up to the cabin. Snow muffled everything. The lake was frozen in big gray plates, the dock lightly dusted. I made a fire, wrapped myself in a blanket, and sat in front of the flames. This cabin could have been another way they used me, I thought. Another place that existed mostly for their benefit, but now it was something else. A physical reminder that I owned something they could not steal with guilt or forged signatures. In the morning on my way back down the mountain, my phone buzzed. Sarah, you have got this, her text said. Remember, this is not about revenge. This is about you finally walking away from a rigged game. I smiled and typed back. Maybe a little revenge, I wrote, quiet revenge. She replied with a heart. Then I imagined went back to the nurse station at the hospital where she worked. I drove toward Denver, toward my lawyer's office, toward a table that would not be set for Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas brunch, but for something more final. Megan's conference room felt different with my parents in it. They sat on one side of the long glass table. My mother had done her hair and makeup, dressed in a soft blue sweater and pearls, her hands folded tightly in her lap. My father wore his one good suit, the tie slightly crooked. Daniel sat a little behind them in a collared shirt that looked like it had been pulled on at the last minute. Their attorney sat to their right, a man in his 50s with a leather folder and a practiced neutral expression. Megan gestured for me to sit at the head of the table. She sat to my left. Ethan was not there. This was not about numbers today. This was about boundaries. Olivia, my mother said as soon as I settled in. Her voice trembled. Honey, please. This is all so unnecessary. You are blowing this out of proportion. We love you. We just made some mistakes. We are family, my father added. Families forgive. Families do not drag each other in front of lawyers and threaten prison over paperwork. Megan slid a document toward them. Her focus did not waver. This is the agreement, she said, her tone measured. If you sign, Olivia will waive her right to pursue criminal charges for the forged endorsement of the inheritance check and for certain specific fraudulent transfers. In exchange, you agree to sever all financial ties. Acknowledge that the Echo Lake cabin is solely her property, commit to no further entries without her written permission, and agree to no direct contact moving forward. You also agree not to disparage her to family, church, or community. If you breach, we proceed with legal actions. Their attorney cleared his throat. We feel this wording is overly harsh, he said. Surely there is a way to lower the temperature here. It would be a tragedy to lose an intact family over a disagreement about money. Megan looked at him evenly. This is not simply a disagreement about money, she said. This is a pattern of long-term financial abuse and manipulation. My client is offering leniency by not going to law enforcement with the evidence of forgery and theft. That is de-escalation. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I do not understand how you can sit there and talk about us like criminals, she said, looking at me, not at Megan. After everything we have done for you, we fed you, we clothed you, we gave you a home, we helped you get your first job. We are your parents. Parents sometimes have to make hard decisions. You are right, I said, my voice steady. Parents feed and clothe and house their kids. That is what parenting is. It is not a loan. It does not entitle you to steal their inheritance and cash it behind their back. It does not give you a lifetime claim on their paycheck. We did not steal anything, my father snapped. We used the money for the family, for Daniel's restaurant, for your brother's future. That was in the spirit of your grandmother's wishes. My grandmother left me that check, I said. My name was on it. You lied to me and told me there was no inheritance. You forged my name and took that choice away. That is not family drama, that is theft. Daniel finally spoke. You are enjoying this, he said, his voice low and furious. Sitting there all righteous with your lawyer acting like you are some hero from a revenge story on Reddit. You like watching us squirm. There is nothing enjoyable about this, I said. Watching your restaurant close did not make me happy, Daniel. It made me sad. But I am not sacrificing my future to save you from the consequences of choices you made as an adult. I have done enough of that. If this feels like karma to you, maybe ask yourself why. Daniel flinched, then glared. You are choosing money over family, he said. I am choosing survival over being your victim, I said. I am choosing boundaries over being drained. I am choosing a future where my worth is not tied to how much I can bail you out. My mother reached for my hand across the table. I moved mine into my lap. You will regret this, she whispered. You will be alone. No parents to visit, no brother to call on your birthday, no grandparents for your future kids, no Christmas mornings with family. Is that what you want? It hurt. Of course it hurt. She knew exactly where to aim. I thought about the Christmas mornings of the past decade, though. The ones where I arrived early to cook and stayed late to clean while they took naps. The ones where they handed Daniel envelope after envelope of cash and gift cards while thanking me for being so sensible. The birthdays where my own was forgotten until I reminded them. I am already alone in all the ways that matter, I said softly. You made sure of that when you sent my whole family to a wedding and left me at home. I would rather be alone by choice. Megan tapped the agreement. If you sign this, she said to them, this will not go to court. Your church will not see those emails. No judge will read about the forged check. No district attorney will see your names on a complaint. You can tell whatever story you want about why you do not see your daughter anymore. You can pretend you are the wounded ones. My client will build a life without you. And if we do not sign, my father asked. Then we file, Megan said, and we will win. The room went very still. Their lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently. My father's face went through several shades of anger and fear. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Daniel pressed his lips together so hard they went white. Finally, my father grabbed the pen. We raised a monster, he muttered. Ungrateful, cold-hearted. Or maybe you raised a woman who finally refuses to be exploited, Megan murmured. He scrawled his name at the bottom of the agreement. My mother signed. Next, tears dropping onto the paper Daniel signed last, his signature tight and jagged. Megan slid the document toward me. I checked the signatures. My hand did not shake. "Thank you," she said. "This meeting is over." I stood. My mother half rose from her chair. "Olivia," she said, "maybe in a year or two we can talk again at Christmas. Or maybe when you have children you will understand what we had to do. We could go to a judge together, ask him to mediate, ask him to help us fix this." "No," I said. "This was not one bad fight. This was a lifetime of manipulation and injustice, of you rewriting every story. So I was the villain when I said no, I am not going back to that." My voice softened, but I did not. "I hope you get the help you need," I said. "I hope you find a way to live without taking from people who love you. But I will not be there to see it." I walked out of the conference room without looking back. In the elevator, Megan finally let out a long breath. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Untethered," I said. "Terrified and free." She smiled a little. "That is what justice feels like sometimes," she said. "Like stepping out of a cage and realizing you can walk." As the elevator doors opened onto the lobby, the sun was hitting the glass in a way that made the city look almost unreal. I stepped out into it anyway. I did not drive home after the meeting. I drove to the cabin. The sky over the mountains was a hard, clear blue, like someone had snapped the world into high definition. The roads were mostly dry, the plows having done their work. My hands relaxed on the steering wheel for the first time in days. When I turned into the driveway at Echo Lake, there was a car already there. For half a second, my heart leapt into my throat, imagining my parents defying the agreement, my brother breaking in some dramatic confrontation involving sheriffs and judges and shouting. Then I recognized the dented sedan, Sarah. I unlocked the cabin door with my new code and stepped inside to the sound of laughter. "Look who actually did it," she called from the kitchen. "I told Dave you would." Uncle Dave stood at the counter opening a bottle of mid-range red wine with careful hands. Sarah was rummaging in the pantry, triumphant with a bag of chips and a jar of salsa. "Surprise," Uncle Dave said. "We figured you should not walk into your new life alone." I laughed, a sound that came out wetter than I meant. My throat still felt raw from holding myself so steady in that conference room. "How did it go?" Sarah asked, searching my face. "They signed," I said. "The cabin is officially mine. No more loans, no more emergency calls, no more surprise visits. No more Christmas guilt trips." Sarah let out a cheer and grabbed me, hugging me so hard my ribs creaked. "To chosen family revenge," she said into my hair. "To justice," Uncle Dave said, lifting 3 glasses he had set on the counter. We poured wine and carried our glasses out onto the deck. The lake was a sheet of matte silver, the ice rough in places where the wind had scoured it. The pines along the shore held clumps of snow. The air was cold enough to sting my nose, but it felt clean. "My mother said I would regret this," I said finally. "That I would be all alone. No family for holidays, no parents to call, no brother." She painted this picture of me sitting alone at Christmas under a sad little tree. "And do you feel alone?" Uncle Dave asked quietly. I looked at the two of them. At Sarah wrapped in a borrowed blanket, feet up on the railing. At Uncle Dave holding his glass like a promise. At the cabin behind us, warm light glowing through the windows. "No," I said. "For the first time, I really do not." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A notification from my banking app. "Scheduled transfer canceled. Joint savings with Robert and Linda Carter. Scheduled transfer canceled. Automatic payment. Daniel Carter Insurance." One after another, the lines appeared. All the little silent sacrifices I had set up years ago. The small ways I kept my family afloat without ever calling it what it was, a siphoning. Sarah leaned over my shoulder, reading. Then she grinned. "Listen to that," she said. "That is the sound of boundaries." I laughed. It felt easier this time. "I used to tell myself the cabin was for all of us," I said, looking out at the ice, "that if I built the perfect retreat, cooked the perfect meals, offered the perfect hospitality, somehow that would heal the family. That Christmas at the lake would be different. That they would look at me and see more than an open wallet." And now Sarah asked. Now I said the cabin is mine. And it is for the people who show up because they see me, not because they want free lodging. Uncle Dave raised his glass. "To the end of emotional and financial exploitation," he said. "To shutting down the family ATM," Sarah added. We clinked glasses and drank. Later, after we made a simple dinner of pasta and salad, after we played board games in front of the fireplace and listened to music after Uncle Dave went to bed in the small guest room, and Sarah claimed the futon. I stepped back out onto the deck alone. The moon had risen over the trees, turning the ice into a sheet of pale light. The cabin behind me glowed warm and solid. No one was calling my name to fix anything. No one was asking for a loan, hinting about a will, complaining about injustice when I suggested boundaries. I wrapped my blanket tighter and let myself remember. I remembered the little girl who tried so hard to be good so her parents would not explode at Thanksgiving dinner, the teenager who cleaned up after Christmas drinks so her father would not get into trouble if a neighbor stopped by, the college student who came home on breaks and found herself cooking, cleaning, soothing, while her brother slept in. I remembered the young woman who handed over her first bonus check to help her parents with back taxes, the one who rushed over when her brother's restaurant had a slow month, the one who co-signed and transferred, who worked late and sent money early, who believed that if she played the responsible daughter long enough, she would finally be invited to sit at the table as an equal. They had never meant to set a place for me, and now for the first time I was setting my own. I stood there until my fingers went numb and my cheeks burned in the cold. When I finally went inside and locked the door, the click of the deadbolt sounded like something ending and something beginning all at once. People expect revenge to look loud. They picture slashed tires in driveways, screaming matches on front lawns, dramatic confrontations in courtrooms. They imagine a judge banging a gavel, a lawyer shouting objection, a guilty verdict in bold letters. Sometimes revenge is quieter. Sometimes it looks like a woman changing the code on a cabin door and never giving it out again. It has been a while now since that first formal letter went out. The emerald green dress still hangs in my closet, unworn. I gave the espresso machine to a coworker who got engaged. I bought myself a high-end set of headphones and a weighted blanket instead. Daniel's restaurant never reopened. Last I heard through the family grapevine that still finds its way to me, he is working as a manager at some other guy's place, complaining that the owner is controlling and does not understand his genius. Sometimes when I let myself imagine a softer world, I picture him learning what it means to live within his means, to be a good employee, to build his life without leaning on my credit score. My parents still live in their stucco house with the plastic snowmen in the yard. They still host Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas brunch. But they have a new story about me. In their version, I am the ungrateful daughter who let outsiders poison her against them. I am the bitter sister who tried to punish her brother for getting married first. I am the selfish career woman who cares more about inheritance and money than about family. They never mention the forged check or the stolen inheritance or the years of quiet exploitation. They talk about my lawyer as if she is a villain who slithered in from the internet. Let them. They have always preferred fiction. Here is my version. I was a daughter who wanted so badly to be loved that I turned myself into a resource. I was the responsible one, the fixer, the reliable character in every episode of our family drama. I showed up at Thanksgiving and Christmas, at birthdays and anniversaries, with casseroles and checks and emotional support. I thought if I kept rescuing them, eventually they would pull me fully into the circle and treat me like they did my brother. Instead, the minute my presence threatened their illusion of the perfect family, they wrote my name off a guest list and onto a different kind of ledger. For a long time, I believed them when they said I was too intense, too dramatic, too obsessed with fairness and injustice. I worried that I was selfish for wanting an equal place at the table, that I was ungrateful for. Noticing the imbalance, I convinced myself that this was what family was. That the price of having parents and a brother and family, Christmases, was to keep paying and keep quiet. Missing my brother's wedding was the moment something cracked. Seeing that caption, the whole family finally together under a photo where my seat was empty, did something to my heart I cannot fully describe. It was like someone turned the lights on in a room I had always walked through in the dark. I could have done what they expected. I could have forgiven quickly, brushed it off as a misunderstanding, hosted the cabin weekend with a smile, kept the transfers going, kept the door code on autopilot. I could have written them off in my mind, but still written checks. Instead, I chose myself. I talked to professionals who did not care about family roles, only about evidence. I asked hard questions about inheritance and wills and ownership. I brought the messy, ugly truth out of the shadows. I forced my parents and brother to face a judge, even if it was just in their own imaginations. I closed the accounts, I changed the locks, I stopped explaining. I did not get the neat cinematic courtroom scene where a judge bangs a gavel and declares them guilty and me vindicated. I got something better. I got my life back. These days, I still work in logistics. I still color code spreadsheets. I still drink coffee in the mornings and lose myself in routing plans and delivery estimates. But now the automatic payments I set up are for my own retirement account, for savings for a fund that might someday buy me a second little place in the sun, or pay for travel or give future me some comfort. I spend almost every other weekend at the cabin. Sometimes Sarah comes up and we sit on the deck wrapped in blankets talking about the latest wild story she heard at the hospital or a new thread she read on our pro revenge that feels a little too close to home. Sometimes Uncle Dave joins us, bringing groceries and mystery novels and stories about my grandmother that make her feel real again, apart from my parents' narrative. Sometimes I go alone. I bring a stack of books and a notebook and I sit by the window or on the dock when the ice has melted and I let my mind get quiet. I listen to the water slapping against the shore, the wind through the trees. I think about my grandmother, and I tell her in my own way that I know now what she tried to give me, and that I am sorry. It took me this long to claim my own inheritance of dignity. I miss the idea of my parents sometimes, not the actual people who manipulated and used me, who forged my name and lied to my face. The fantasy versions. The mother who might have shown up at my door with soup when I had the flu instead of a request for help paying a bill. The father who might have taught me how to fix things in the house instead of calling me dramatic. The brother who might have called me first when he got engaged, who might have insisted I stand beside him at the altar. I have learned to grieve those imaginary people and let them go. If you are listening to this and there is a familiar ache in your chest, if your stomach clenched at certain parts, if you heard echoes of your own parents or siblings in my story, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not selfish for wanting boundaries. You are not dramatic for noticing patterns of injustice. You are not ungrateful for refusing to bankrupt your future for people who do not treat you with basic respect. Family drama is not an excuse for abuse. Blood is not a free pass to break you. Revenge does not always have to be spectacular to be real. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply reclaiming your life from the people who thought they owned it. If my story feels like your story, tell me. Share the moment you realized the table you were killing yourself to sit at was never really set for you. Tell me about the locks, you changed the accounts, you closed the boundaries, you drew the inheritance, you finally claimed for yourself, whether it was money or peace or both. And if you want to hear more stories like this, more family drama, where the quiet one finally stands up, where the scapegoat steps out of the script, where the woman who was always the fixer finally gets to fix her own life, stick around. Like this. Leave a comment. Subscribe. Because there are a lot of us out here, women who were told they were too intense, who learned to shrink themselves to keep others comfortable, who spent Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthdays cleaning up after people who would not lift a finger for them. Women whose parents hid wills, twisted inheritances, played favorites, rewrote history. Women who are just now learning they can choose their own family. We deserve better than leftover love and overdue apologies. We deserve our own cabin by the lake, whatever that looks like for you. We deserve to change the locks and keep the keys.